some double espresso, which is awesome. And why do I love espresso? Well, I love espresso because it puts this tiny little froth on top of the coffee and it makes it like creamy. So it's really, really good. Okay, so let's get started. Trying to see if it'll, well, I don't know if it's gonna show that I'm on, but okay. Anywho, let's see here. Just so I can say hello to the people that are showing up. There we are. Let's see if it'll turn it down. There we go. Okay. And look at my beautiful hair. Trying to look fancy for y'all, but my hair's all crazy. I have not, again, still have not been feeling well, trying to get things underway, but eventually I will get on a regimen again, back to my life, which is what I'm hoping for. Good morning, Kwati. How are you? It's been a while. Glad to see you here. Yeah, I have been sort of under the weather. I've been out of it. It's been a whirlwind of crazy. This year is probably the hardest year I have ever faced in my entire life, I believe. And I just want to say that the challenges that I'm facing are like no other. First of all, I decided that I wanted to try on relationship to see what that would be like. And that went into an epic fail, which is okay. And that's why I get on here and speak authentically. Because it is not easy to live in this current world that we see. Why? Because there are so many things that are happening. Just dropped in to say hi, always in my thoughts if I'm not here. Thank you, Kwadi. I appreciate it. And I hope these are going well for you, especially with your family and being able to communicate, or at least being able to accept and understand that some people are going to have their own way of thinking and we may not change the way that they view the world, and that's okay. We're all interconnected, and I've been doing a lot of research and in my master's program on paradigms of consciousness, which is speaking into the different paradigms and also talking about post-pomo, which again takes the 3D world into a world of everything's interconnected rather than, us versus them or the separation. Good morning. I don't know who's on here live. You can say good morning so I know you're here. I don't see you. But it tells us that we are all interconnected, and we do know this because when we start to think about the way that our minds work, and oh, it's Betty. Hi, Betty. How are you? Thinking about it, it's kind of like the psi, and I didn't realize that there was a school of thought called psi, which is sort of, I think of sci-fi, like, oh, is this real? It's kind of like the, when we think about like Star Trek or, these sci-fi movies, that they're starting to measure these things that science itself can't answer, and that scientists they sort of don't want to go there, and they get sort of upset when you bring it up. I know because I've had this happen to me in the past when I've gone to talk to professors about what I want to do. And when you start to talk about stuff like this, crocheting and drinking coffee and listening to happiness. Ooh, nice. I love crocheting. It's been a long time since I've crocheted, but I should probably pick it up again. But of course, coffee. And then, happiness, like you said. Yay. So the sigh is like, it's like this, and we all go through this. Sometimes we'll have a dream, and the dream that we have sort of gives us some information, and then we have this intuition that tells us something's going to happen, and we're like, I know something's going to happen. And sometimes we will communicate that to other people. Sometimes we'll say, I had a feeling about this and that and the other, be careful, whatever. And so, and then something happens and they're like, wow, thank you. Or how did you know that that was going to happen? And sometimes we just have these, it's like the intuition. And sometimes it's like, did we already see the outcome and know the future? And that's why we understood that. What is it that gave us that insight into seeing something that was going to happen later in the future? Now, I do this with certain things, especially like with drinks or coffee or whatever. So as soon as I have a thought that the coffee might fall, I instantly grab it and move it, because I don't know if my thoughts have an impact on what might happen or if I'm seeing a future action already happen. It's kind of like in the Matrix when he goes to see the Oracle, right? And she goes, "Oh, don't worry about that vase." And he's like, "What vase?" And he turns around and boom, he breaks it. And she said, now the question's going to be, did you break the vase because I said something, or was it going to happen anyway? And so it's that thing, like, did the thought create the action that came after, or was it already there and we predicted that it was already going to happen? Now, this happens with people. Like, the easiest one to talk about is like family members, right? You'll be thinking about a family member, like, I'm thinking about this, and then boom, all of a sudden, um, you know, boom, your family member calls, and you're like, oh yeah, I just was just thinking about you. Or you're talking about a specific person, and boom, they show up. Well, science has a way of sort of describing what this might be, right? And this isn't the quantum physics, right? The quantum level. Hey, Lisa. Yeah, yeah, hi. I was just thinking about you this morning, of course. I think about you all the time, though. Let's see. Lots of Moyas in my family. And girl, I can tell you stories about being psychic. Yeah, then telling me things that didn't happen yet. I love it. Yeah. And that's what I love to talk about, because these are the things that people, we can't measure scientifically, but they exist, and people have these things all the time. And so these are the things that science doesn't want to talk about. They don't want to dive into. Um, they think it's woo woo. They think it's, but quantum physics, again, has a way of sort of describing it from a scientific perspective, which is called quantum entanglement, meaning that there are particles when they interact with each other that somehow are interconnected. And it doesn't matter the distance that they're apart. If this thing does this thing does the exact same thing. So there are thoughts, I believe, that our thoughts become entangled with one another, that our mind, when we're impacted by another human being, when we come into contact with another human being, that somehow some of our quantum mechanical cells or something communicate with each other and stay entangled in some way. And then when we start to think about the individual, they start to think about us, and boom, there's a connection that happens. So there's a way to describe it, but it's almost hard to say, right? Like, how does this stuff happen? How does it occur? There's these apparitions, there's these, I mean, we see ghosts, we see all these things, and people are afraid to talk about it. Now, I had a special guest come on here, on Spirit and Coffee, just to do the voice podcast, and he's in Australia, but he is a first responder. So he does the medical stuff, and he's a first responder when people are not, when there's an emergency. And he told me that, even in his field, there's no room to discuss or talk about these things that sort of occur. That there's this intuition that happens, and the intuition that sort of occurs, they're not able to talk about it. So he's like, I can feel it. He goes, it's really strange. He said, I can feel when I'm going to get a call. I know it before it happens, that someone is dying and that I need to go. And he said, it's weird. It'll wake me up in the middle of the night. Like, I'll wake up in the middle of the night because he's on call before the call comes through, and then the call comes through, and he's like, yeah, I knew. And he's like, it comes in threes. That's what he told me. He said, typically, he said, and this is just a common thing within our field, is that things happen in threes. So if something bad is going to happen, it happens in threes. And he said this is something that he notices in his field, that they talk about in their field. Good morning, Alkazum. I don't know. Your username is very long. Yeah, probably say very incorrectly. Oh, look at Lisa. I'm wearing your necklace. Protection. I've had it on forever for protection. Anywho, so he says that he gets this sort of feeling before, but he's not able to discuss this with his colleagues. He's not able to discuss it with the people because they think it's this woo woo thing, and it's not to be discussed, it's not to be talked about. And so it becomes a challenge for people to really authentically be who they choose to be, or be who they are. I even have friends who have told me sort of undercover, please don't tell anybody, because they're afraid that they're going to be looked at as maybe wackos in their field. And these are professional people, but they have this sixth sense or psychic ability or these special gifts, and they're afraid to say anything because it's sort of taboo still in a way, which it shouldn't be. I mean, look at the world we're living in. How could it be taboo? Everything's crazy. You can't tell me that the way the world looks right now isn't crazy. So to be able to be authentically us and talk about these things where we have the ability to have foresight. Well, of course, we're if we're made in God's image and God knows all, I'm not saying that we would know all, but we would know something, and that we could in fact see into perhaps an outcome or the future, or understand what the outcome or result may be. And perhaps it's just patterns that repeat themselves, and we're able to understand because of this will happen. But there's things you can't describe. And I am telling you, I literally have gone through, I think I told the story on here at one point where we were sitting around the kitchen table with, it was my niece and my neighbor, and I was washing the dishes, and I went like this and a fork fell, and my niece got up to sort of look for the fork, and then she sat down, and I go, you don't just stop looking because you can't find it. You've got to keep looking until you find it. And she goes, no, Auntie, I've looked everywhere. I can't, it's not there. 3 people witness a fork fell on the floor and it disappeared, gone, never to be found. Now, we remodeled the kitchen because people, well, what if it go behind the refrigerator? What if it went behind? No, we remodeled our entire kitchen. We literally re-put new tile, so we moved everything, and no fork ever appeared. So how do you explain those things? There's no scientific explanation for what happened, but there was 3 witnesses that saw it happen. It went from there to the floor to disappear, gone, nowhere to be found. So how do you explain these things? These are the types of things that we as humans don't get to talk about as much. And I would say, why not? Because I guarantee that every individual, even the scientists, have something that happened to them that they cannot explain, that there's no explanation for. Now, what do we do? So I say, be authentically you. I talk about the things that I see. Of course, I'm authentic, and I don't really care what people think. If they think I'm a crazy lady or what, that's fine. I'll go first. I'll be the one. So when we're at if I'm dancing or whatever, I'll be the first to dance out on the floor. I don't care if I look like a jerk. And if people want to join in, cool. If they don't, cool. I'm just going to do me and be happy and, just be me. But allowing yourself to step into that vulnerability and to communicate these things to people, right? I think what it does is it opens up the communication. It allows people to feel comfortable in expressing and talking about things that happen to them like this without feeling judged or made wrong or like they're crazy. Okay. Good morning, Nicole. How are you? You know what, Nicole? I haven't even been on in a while. So that's quite all right because I have been totally a big mess. But I'm getting better by the day. I was off for an entire week. And so there you go. So it's okay. Um, we're all working together to try to figure this world out. And that's really, I've always told you guys that's what Spirit and Coffee is about. It's just about love and being able to communicate. I think it's morphed into other subjects and topics, and that's good. But it's a platform for people to realize that they shouldn't be afraid to be who they are. It's okay to communicate your authentic self. It's okay to be who you are. And I know that it's scary sometimes, and sometimes it's, you're afraid that you're going to get judged, or you might be afraid that people will not take you seriously, or, that you're not going to be liked. And the reality is, it's like, okay, hope you're feeling better. Thank you. Um, it's really the way I see it is that you guys get to be you, authentically you, and not give a shit what people think. Excuse my language. Why? Because we get one life. Well, that I know of. I don't know. I mean, in this body, I think this body's never gonna happen again. But I get one shot that I know of. And so if I'm getting one shot at this in this particular body, in this particular knowing, in this particular era, at this particular time, then I'm going to be 100% authentically me. And my hope is that you are able to be authentically yourself. And if that means talking about things like psychic abilities, if it means talking about healing with your hands, if it's starting, my cousin the other day came over and was talking about, your chi and how do you use your chi energy, and she was really interested in chi. And I said, well, that is your fire energy. And she said that there was this monk who could start fires with his hands, and just being excited about that kind of stuff, and then wanting to understand how that might work for her, or can she do that. Or having a cousin say, I can feel my qigong, which is the ball of energy or healing energy that we can do. So there's all of these different ways that we can express and to engage with this world, and people are going to make you wrong about it all the time, because that's what people do. People want you to see the world the way they see the world. And if you see it in a different way, then, oh, you must be crazy. Or, oh, there's no way that you could be psychic. That's not possible. Or how could you see the future? Or why you? Why do you get that special gift? What makes you so special? No, it's nothing. It's just the fact that I'm willing, right, to go there. I'm willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to open myself up to these things. I'm willing to communicate. So everybody has a special ability. It's just that some people don't want to express that special gift or ability because they're afraid that they're going to be looked at or shamed. So how do you step into being authentically you? There's going to be haters. I have haters all the time, let me tell you. It's a never-ending thing. People say, well, how could people hate on you? How could people not like you? Oh, because they can. And it's okay. I'm going to be me, authentically me. And I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I'm not going to be everybody's cup of coffee. I've said this a billion trillion times. People will come and go, and that's okay. I'm okay with that because that's how life happens. Nobody will ever see the world the way that I see the world 100%, just like you uniquely have your way of viewing the world. It's not that we want people to, or I should say this, if you want harmony in your life, it's not forcing people to see life the way you do, but honoring the way that they see life the way they do, and saying, okay, that's the way you see life, cool. If it doesn't jive with me and you don't like my worldview, that's okay. You don't have to. There's nothing that requires you to say, oh, I have to listen to what Natalie says or believe everything she believes. No, not even a little bit, not even at all. I know that I believe what I believe, and what works for me is what I'm going to do, what's true to my heart and true to me. So it's really finding that within yourself. And rather than saying you have to follow 100% the way I do things, saying, okay, I honor that you see life that way. Okay, that's the way you see life. I honor that. I don't have to make you see life through my lens, but can you honor the way I see life? If you can honor the way I see life and I honor the way you see life, now we have coherence, and now we can co-create, or now we can respect or have some dignity and respect for one another, rather than this disconnect and saying, oh, you have to see it, but I can never see it your way. There's no way. I don't live in your body. I don't see through your eyes. So naturally, there's going to be a difference of opinion, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to explore or open myself up to listening and to hearing how you view the world. I may not see it from that perspective, but I can honor it and say, okay, you do you, and I'll do me. Okay. So my hope is that you guys start to sort of, I know I would love to hear your stories about, good morning, Tammy. Just your stories about what you've experienced in terms of the psi, in like psychic abilities, or the foresight for the future, where you you stop something harmful from happening because you felt this, or maybe a dream state that you had where you had a dream of something, and then boom, it sort of came to life, and you were like, wow, my dreams are telling me something, they're guiding me in a way that I didn't even understand. So being able to tap into those abilities and share them with the world, without being afraid. Now, if you are afraid, and it's okay if you are, to share them, because again, this is sort of a taboo subject still. But people are interested. I like it because I was watching this video, and the man said, these professors and all these, researchers and very, very scientific people who are into the scientific research of the quantum physics, to classic physics, to the neurosciences. They don't typically like to go there. They think this is just crazy, taboo, not, can't be proven, whatever. But they're still interested. There's still this, everybody's interested in, like, oh, well, is there, there's ghosts, ooh, or this happened, what about this, what about when I thought about that? Why? Because everybody's had some sort of engagement with something they can't explain and science can't explain. And the more that people are able to share this, I think the bigger we'll broaden our minds, right? And we'll be able to see the picture from a bigger perspective. Now, I'm not saying that some people, because some people say they're psychic and they go off of, like watching cues of people, but I'm talking about real experiences of individuals who, sort of get this foresight about something that's going to happen. Like I've had foresight, when, good morning, Adriana. So I've had foresight when there was a tsunami, and I cried, and I even called my mother, and I was crying. I said, something's going to happen. I could feel, and I don't know if it was that I was feeling the vibrational frequencies that were coming through before it actually hit, because there is sort of a change, but my body was present and receiving this information. And as I received the information, I started to cry. I didn't know what was going to happen. All I could see were people dying and people crying, and I was crying for their souls. I mean, it was really what happened was really weird, and I had to stop. I was on the freeway, I had to pull over, and I just was overwhelmed with tears and emotion. And I called my mom, and I'm like, I don't know, something's gonna happen. I could feel it. I could feel it internally. And then the earthquake happened, and then boom, the tsunami happened, and I just knew it. Now, does this happen for me all the time? No. No, it's not like, oh, I can predict weather pattern and all this stuff. It was just, it happened at that time, and there was a couple of other times when earthquakes happened that I was able to tap into that. And I don't know if it's because I was fully present in the moment, or I was supposed to receive that information. I don't even know what I was supposed to do with it. It's not like I could have stopped it or anything, but I did have that connection. Or I witness a fork fall on the floor and there's three people and it disappears. So there's these things that happen to us, and everybody has these stories, and they don't know how to describe them. But again, they're afraid to speak into them or about them because common or popular society might say you're crazy, or your family, oh, you're crazy, or oh, we can only talk to those people about this because if we tell everybody, they're going to think that we're going crazy. Or if you have psychic abilities and you're like, I have this, but I'm not telling anybody because I don't want people to think I'm crazy. Why? Because it's taboo, right? It's a taboo thing. And then you have these people that are psychics, but some people will dive into these people that are psychic and they'll call the psychic hotlines and stuff. And I'm not saying that those are 100% true. Some people just use it to make money, but I'm talking about real situations that happen. And so I'm actually really, really loving this topic, which again, my master's program are sort of diving into this. So I ask you to don't be afraid unless you are. But if you need someone to talk to, I'm always here, of course. I'd love to hear your stories about, what's happened and the psychic abilities and all that stuff. And I don't think people are crazy. I even have a neighbor who she's always like, people are going to think I'm crazy. I'm like, no, trust me. There's nothing you tell me I think you're crazy. Because I myself, I've, I know, I've witnessed, I've gone through, I've seen, there's stuff has happened. Me and my sister witnessed this at the hospital, and it doesn't happen all the time. It's not like I'm getting all of these downloads and stuff, but we're driving up the one way by the hospital, and we see a guy, and my sister's driving, and she like stops the car, and I'm like, oh, you're gonna hit the guy, and then there's no guy. There was nobody. So it's like a ghost walked in front of us. And we both looked at each other and were like, did you see that? I was like, yeah, well, I told you to stop. I thought you were going to hit him. And there was nothing there. So it was more than one person witnessing this thing that's going on, that there's no way to explain it, right? I don't know how to explain what that was. How did we both see it? How did we both think there was a guy there and then there wasn't a guy there? So again, diving into sort of this type of stuff, it's interesting. It's cool because there's really no, I don't think, explanation scientifically for that, except maybe quantum entanglement for maybe foresight of the future, or when we sort of connect to an individual and we know they're going to call us and then they do, or we're thinking about them and then we see them, that kind of thing. But to see ghosts and stuff, there's no way to, how do you describe those things? But again, how can we describe all that God has to give us? We can't. We're not God. But we're witnessing the miracles around us all the time. And so part of the miracles are perhaps, seeing vortexes and forks disappear, or seeing ghosts appear in front of us, or seeing the future, or feeling the future, or having some psychic ability, or whatever it is. So I just encourage you to explore that. And if you want to talk about those things, I'm interested in listening. You can definitely share them with me at my on my email, which is spiritandbrew@gmail.com, if you don't want to engage. And you're welcome to come on here and talk about them. I'd love to talk about that stuff. It'd be awesome. Okay, so there you have it. Love you guys. Have the best day ever. It is Thursday. I will be on tomorrow. I'm hoping. I think I'll be feeling well. So, fingers crossed. But I love you guys. Have the best day ever again. And I will see you all to mañana, tomorrow. And okay.